Thank you all. So my daughters are going to be envious. I was introduced by Arnold. I appreciate you, Governor. Thanks for your strong leadership. Thanks for your friendship. California is a really important state for our country, and I think a lot of Californians really appreciate the fact that you're steady at the helm. And thank you for having us. Frank, thank you very much for your hospitality. So they say, why do you want to come to Robinson Helicopter Company? Well, first, I love entrepreneurs and dreamers. And your boy told me that you dreamt about a company and you started it in your kitchen. Isn't it interesting? The company was started in the kitchen, and now he's got the Terminator coming by to herald his success. I mean, I love America because we stand for dreams that can be accomplished. And so, first reason I'm here is I want to congratulate the Robinsons for living a dream and for giving people good work. Arnold and I had the pleasure of working the floor and shaking hands with people who were making a living for their families. And so you're building good helicopters, but more importantly, you're providing people a chance to work. And I appreciate that a lot. The other reason I'm here is I want to spend a little time talking about the economy and about what we can do to help in the short term and in the long term. Before I do want to also welcome Congresswoman Jane Harman. This is her district, and I'm proud to have traveled from Washington to California with her. Jane, thank you for coming. Appreciate your time being here. And Dreyer and Royce are with us too as well, and that's Congressman Dreyer and Congressman Royce. I appreciate you all joining us. Thank you for your time. Mayor, thanks for coming. I hope you're confident about our economy. I am. We've got some short-term issues to deal with. Fourth quarter growth slowed to 0.6%. There's signs that our economy are slowing. There's some uncertainty in the economy. But in the long run, you've got to be confident about your economy. Inflation's down, interest rates are low, productivity's high, our economy's flexible, it is resilient. We've been through problems before. As a matter of fact, we've been through problems before since I was your president. We've had a recession, corporate scandals, an attack on the United States of America. We've had major natural disasters, and every time we've come through strong. And that's what's going to happen this time, too. But the federal government can help. We can have some smart policy out of Washington. And the smartest thing we can do is to help deal with the uncertainty by putting about $145 billion into your pockets so you can spend it, which will help this economy stay strong. And at the same time, part of that $145 billion is provide incentives for businesses, large and small, to invest. See, when you provide an incentive for a company to invest, they go out and buy a machine. And when they buy that machine, somebody has to put labor into the machine. Somebody's working. So the whole purpose of a stimulus package is to have something robust enough to make a difference, temporary enough that we can balance our budget over time, and simple enough to be effective. And as the governor mentioned, we reached an agreement with both Democrats and Republicans in the House of Representatives on a package that's simple, robust, and effective. And now the Senate is debating the issue. And I understand people having their points of view, and of course we welcome points of view in Washington. There appears to be a lot of them up there. But whatever the Senate does, they should not delay this package. They should not keep money out of your pocket. The sooner you get a check, the more likely it is that the stimulus package will kick in and make a difference. So my attitude is, if you're truly interested in dealing with the slowdown in the economy, the Senate ought to accept the House package, pass it, and get it to my desk as soon as possible. That's what I want to talk about. I also want to talk about trade. Now, people in our country, let's be perfectly frank about it. you hear them say trade isn't any good. It doesn't help. If I were a worker at Robinson, I'd be arguing against that. You got good jobs here. People are working. And 70% of what you make gets sold overseas. So you can't tell the people at Robinson Helicopter that trade isn't good. When 70% of that which you manufacture gets sold somewhere else other than the United States, they ought to have a sign walking in here and say, trade is not only good, it is great. And we want the federal government to make it easier for us to sell products. That's what trade is really about, isn't it? If you're good at something, and you're good at making helicopters, then you ought to have your government making it easier to sell your product, not harder. Mr. Robinson said 70% of the revenues from this company are a result of products being sold overseas. And that happens in a lot of companies in America, by the way. As a matter of fact, it is estimated that our growth last year, a third of that growth was caused by exports. When people are selling something overseas, that means somebody's working. And there's a lot of customers overseas. So one of the goals of this administration is to reduce trade barriers. The interesting thing about what I'm about to tell you on 3 free trade agreements that we're hoping Congress votes on here pretty soon is that we're not treated the same way. In other words, they got their goods and services coming to our country without a lot of tariffs. And when we're trying to sell into their countries, they're taxing it, which makes it much harder to sell. Reasonable policy says to nations, you treat us the way we treat you. That's all we're asking for. We're saying to countries, if your goods and services are coming here, which by the way are good for our consumers. Like if you're a consumer, you want a lot of choices. You want a lot of different options. But we want to be treated equally too. Good trade policy is fair trade policy. And so these trade agreements I'm about to describe to you level the playing field. When I say level the playing field, it means we'll be treated equally. And that's important because we can compete with anybody, anytime, anywhere, just as long as the rules are fair. That's what I think. I think our workers are the best in the world. I said in the State of the Union the other night, let's level the playing field, open up markets so the best workers in the world can have the fruits of their labor sold overseas. And that's what trade's all about. You got people in this country saying, no, trade doesn't matter. I'm telling you, it matters. It matters to our economy, and it matters to the jobs right here in Robinson Manufacturing, Robinson Helicopter. The other interesting thing about trade is if you're working for a company that's selling goods overseas, you're likely to be paid higher wages. Trade yields better pay. So what are you going to do about it, Mr. President? You know, it's one thing to talk about the benefits of trade. Well, we've negotiated free trade agreements. As we sit down with countries and said, let's get a free trade agreement in place. And we reduced barriers and tariffs through the negotiations. And there are 3 such agreements before the Congress. There was 4. Congress recently passed a deal with Peru. And we want to do the same thing with Colombia and Panama and South Korea. Now, for the person working here at Robinson, I don't know if you know this, but when you try to sell into Colombia, part of the helicopter parts face a 5% surcharge. That makes it harder to sell something. And when something's taxed, it's harder to sell into a market. The free trade agreement that we've negotiated will eliminate that surcharge. It makes it more likely that these products will be sold to Colombia. In Panama, there's a 15% tax on the helicopter you manufacture. I've been told there's a 15% tax. I believe there's a 15% tax, and I know that a free trade agreement will reduce that tax, which means it's more likely you're going to sell a helicopter into Panama. And when you're more likely to sell a helicopter into Panama, it means you're more likely to keep work. That's what that means. Free trade means jobs for Americans. Free trade means good paying jobs for Americans. And so Congress needs to pass these agreements for the sake of economic vitality. Now, Arnold talked about the effect for the state of California. You're selling hundreds of billions of dollars worth of goods out of California to other parts of the world. And we need to keep that trend going. I mean, if we want to worry about our economy long term, You need your government knocking down barriers to our products and our goods and services. Congress is going to have a vote coming up pretty soon on Colombia. And if it were an easy vote, I wouldn't be talking about it. But it's going to be a tough vote. Some say trade hurts our economy. These are good, decent people. I just beg to disagree. I respectfully disagree. I would ask them to think about the example of this company right here. Some say it really doesn't matter. I think it matters a lot to our standing in the world as to whether or not we support a friend. Colombia is an important country for our interests. They got a good president named President Uribe. And he inherited a tough deal, tough situation where he's fighting off drug lords, drug traffickers, people who are manufacturing drugs that come and pollute our kids. And he's taking the fight to this enemy. And he's an ally. And he wants this free trade agreement passed. It's in his country's interest. And if we reject this opportunity to support a friend with good economic policy, if we turn down this free trade agreement, it'll hurt our relations in South America. It'll give the voices of false populism something to say. It is in our strategic interests that we support democracies in our neighborhood. And it's in our strategic interest and our economic interest that the United States Congress passes this free trade agreement with Colombia. I'm looking forward to making the case for Panama and South Korea as well. The first vote coming up is Colombia. And I'm looking forward to traveling this country, talking to people about the benefits of free trade and the importance of this free trade agreement. We're also going to try to get a Doha round of trade. In other words, opening up around the world, opening up trade. I hope you share the same concern I have about people living in terrible poverty. You know, we're in this ideological struggle against, I called them last night evil men, and I meant what I said. These are people that murder the innocent to achieve political objectives. And the only way they can sell their ideology is when they find hopeless people. And you can find hopeless people in places where there's no hope because the economies are sick. The best way to help people is not through giving people your taxpayers' money, but to encourage enterprise through commerce and trade. So the Doha round is a great opportunity to advance prosperity around the world and deal a serious blow to those who exploit the hopeless. The other thing about trade that I want you to know is that sometimes when trade takes place, somebody loses work, and I understand that. And that's not a happy circumstance, and the government ought to help people. One response is, okay, let's just don't trade at all, which would be bad in my judgment. The other response is, let's have job training to help somebody get the skills necessary to fill the jobs of the 21st century. It's called Trade Adjustment Assistance. And it's a vital program. And when you combine trade adjustment assistance with our community colleges, what you've got is a great opportunity to help people who've lost a job because of trade find the skills necessary to get a better paying job. And so for the critics who say, well, people lose work, my answer is the benefits for the country as a whole are important, but we will help you, the individual, get your life back together with good education. I finally want to say something about investment. It's very important for our country to be open for investment without sacrificing our national security. There's some countries around the world that have accumulated large amounts of money. Sometimes it's our money. And it makes sense to say to somebody, sure, you can invest in America. I noticed the other day one of these Wall Street firms had a big chunk of foreign money invest in their balance sheet. That we ought to say, you bet. Absolutely. You're welcome to invest in the United States of America. Investment means jobs and productivity increases. Now, we're going to do it in a way that doesn't sacrifice national security. We'll analyze investments. But this nation ought to not close our doors and be fearful. We ought to be confident because we're a great people. We've overcome problems throughout our history. There'll be other problems in the future, and every time we can overcome them. So I appreciate you giving me a chance, Mr. Robinson, to come and visit with you. I especially was pleased to meet your employees. It's a good group of folks, highly motivated and hardworking, and they were very hospitable. And for that, the governor and I are very grateful. Governor, I've got my own helicopter driver. Thank you. But I'm proud to be with you. And more importantly, I'm proud to be with you all. God bless America. Thank you.